Hi, everybody. I am Holly Celiano, and I have Rebecca and Jonathan Rodriguez back, and we're calling this series Authentic Law. And today we're going to talk about abandonment. So, welcome back. And I'm so excited for this series that we're starting together. And authentic law is what we really want. We want to be lawful. So, let's talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. I'm also really excited about this series because, when we're working with people in the law movement, a lot of what we're working with people on is personal development. And so, by having this series, we get to engage the audience to think about things a little bit differently and prepare the mind, the body, and the spirit for all the freedom to come, and all the aspects that come with being in freedom. You know what I mean?
And within these circles, there's a movement to call everything alternative because we're so used to being entrenched in the matrix with things as they are, just like alternative medicine is the way we want to go. There's a movement to call it alternative law, but really, law is our birthright. We should be embracing law. What we don't want is legal. We make a very clear distinction between legal and lawful. So, for short, alternative law would be called alt law, which is a rebel. And really, we are rebelling against a particular system, but really we want to be in law. And so we think that alternative is not the best thing to call it, but
It's authentic.
authentic
Yes,
completely.
authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
Um,
also want to be our true, authentic selves. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And this actually leads into what creates that authenticity. It's really knowing the self, right? Really having a relationship with the inner parts of yourself to really see what makes you tick, what makes you happy, the level of self-will, you have in order to attain your goals, or even the programming that is attached that causes us to maneuver in ways that are maybe not in benefit for ourselves. Which I always return to the aspect of abandonment, to really understand what that meaning is, abandonment, and how it's our entire collective experience on multiple layers, really helps to prepare the scenario, the fact that we are actually returning back to ourselves when we're coming back into authentic law and actually having remedy within the law. It's returning to ourselves. So it's a really exciting time, I think. Like, the consciousness is ready for this, you know?
I agree. Consciousness is definitely shifting, and it's going to be shifting in leaps and bounds. And being able to have remedy or law where we always felt a victim of the legal system. Now you're able to be able to stand up for yourself.
It's
Yeah.
a very good point.
And when you say being the victim, I consider that a form of abandonment, right? It's to think about, like, everybody constantly being so programmed to abandon ship all the time. We understand on the greater level that we've abandoned our estates. I'm sure that many people who follow, they understand that there is an estate going on that's being managed that we want to come back into connection with to claim. But it's also, when we look at the abandonment, we wake up every day. How many people abandon their breath? You know, just paying attention to the breath that's happening, and that being the spirit that moves us. And then even that on a grander scale, which is the macro.
Yeah. As above, so below.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you follow the etymological breadcrumbs of abandonment, it really gets into that there's a natural way to be, and you must, in order to abandon something, you must relinquish it. And it leads, one word leads to another. It's like a stepping stone. And so you're really forsaking that energy, that natural energy that God gave you to fully express yourself and to show up for Him as well as a vessel, and give it to somebody else. There's always a relationship because it seems that when it comes to, there's only two things, nature and art, that art is the thing that gets abandoned, right? And so there has to be a relationship. That relationship is the other. Whoever, someone comes along and will salvage. And if you look at the roots of that, it means to save, right? And save from what? from a lack of a relationship. That's what's taking place. So, and we're going to obviously,
So salvage, if you leave something behind, somebody's going to bound to pick it up, right? Just like when we see the estates. You abandon your estate, somebody has to manage it. A trust will not fail on a want for a trustee. So somebody has to go in and be the custodian for those estates. Now, if we're talking about abandoning ourselves, that makes it where everything else that continues that programming of abandonment will pursue because we haven't fully claimed our own energy. We haven't fully stepped into our full essence. And I know you know this, Holly, because you do a lot of spiritual work. You've done a lot of work in this field. And I know that you're probably very familiar with the term abandonment. And, personally, because I've grew up with a very toxic family, my parents were alcoholics. And, my father, he was born premature, so he was heavily coddled, all of his life. He didn't really have to do very much for himself. And so, um, with that kind of identity, being in my background, I got very familiar with the term abandonment and what it feels like to be left out. And I know that this is a collective conscious feeling experience. If my parents, were doing this to me, then they themselves were feeling abandoned and so forth and so forth and so forth. And so what I love about this day and age, this time, this opening that's happening is that we're seeing that when we're doing our own inner work, we're actually healing our ancestral lineage, right? Just like when we're going to claim the estate, we're actually claiming our ancestral lineage. So I find that the only way to have remedy in the law is by having clarity and resolve and forgiveness and love for all those identities around abandonment. Because really, we're never truly abandoned, right? We're always being held by the earth, right? The sun always comes up. We always get to have a plethora of air, to breathe into our lungs. It's just an illusion that we're actually abandonment. But the thought is that we're supposed to place our energy into something, into some kind of reality or dynamic, which then returns us something that we're not really feeling the fulfillment on. Because again, it's coming to the outside world to give us a satisfaction when really it's about turning within and claiming all that energy in order to not feel no longer abandonment, left out, right? Which allows you then to align to what your remedies are in law. So as so within, so without.
yeah. And you can really think of abandonment as an egregore, might be a new term for other people, but it's a thought form, an energetic thought form that when multiple minds come together, like the scripture says, when two of you are present with an intent towards me, there I am. And so by adding more people to the mix, this is one of the reasons why we congregate or get together is to rub faces to one another and encourage one another in that same consciousness. And so abandonment, it's gotten so warm and fuzzy. What a great little cocoon to step into with other people and to feel that everything's been taken away from us as a victim. When in reality, everything, like she said, has been supplied in ample. I mean, your default position really is abundance. So it takes an egregor or to come in and really shift the conscious, take the energy away in the collective conscious to focus upon. And so really, as we each one step away from that egregor, it will die. And there's something within, I'm going to paraphrase, within the Greek mythology that once a god is forgotten, he dies. It takes the believers to keep that God alive. And so I think that's a point, an esoteric point, that if we turn our focus, truly focus and attention is love, if we love something else in replacing abandonment, then we will have that other thing.
And
So
I'm also going to just say, yeah, go ahead,
I
Holly.
I was just going to add for those that didn't watch our first series I did with you, you offer remedies on how to navigate in authentic law. So we're talking about how this relates to everything in our lives. Abandonment. We abandon our states because we didn't even know we had estates. Therefore, we've abandoned ourselves. So we're going to do a series to bring everybody into their own knowledge and power of how powerful you are the first step is acknowledging that you've abandoned your state, therefore you abandon yourself. But this ties in that you have remedies on how to navigate in the natural law. So I just wanted to bring people up to speed on that.
Yeah, that's the path to redemption. And when people think of that, they tend to think in terms of something religious. It's not. We've given something up that we should not have given. It's like your dad gave you the most awesome gift. You didn't enjoy it. You turned around and gave it to somebody else because you thought it was worthless. And now it's to repent from that error or that sin and turn around and get back on the path to your natural state.
Yeah, I just also want to bring into light that, you know, I have a friend who really says this well, but darkness is unrecognized love. So by removing ourselves from the identity that we are left or that we had not, right, allows us to bring more awareness and more love into those shadow parts of ourselves, which get in the way of us being able to continue on and accessing our full dreams, you know? And this is such an important aspect to understand when facilitating, such as equity, right? And you're trying to clear a contract, you know, when we work with people on that level, we're not only dealing with the physical paper, we're also dealing with the spiritual and the mental components, you know, that led up to all of the reasons and the consequences that took place in that moment that caused them to be bound, you know. And so this is like a great shedding of what doesn't fit the mental picture, so that we can, yeah, truly step into who we are and, yeah, recognize that, yeah, we have so much power within ourselves, like you said, Holly. And by recognizing the power, like how manifestation works, for instance, how one can manifest things, you know, often what we see is when people come into this field, if they are in the mentality of lack, they've already abandoned the idea that they could have something abundant. They've already abandoned their ability to step into tools that will allow those traumas to release, you know. And that's what we have to do is we have to reverse those mindsets. And so what I really love about the series is it gives an opportunity for people to really start getting familiar, get used to the concepts of, if you're not already, really manifesting your reality, really stepping out of those feelings that make you start choosing and start creating a world that does not give you what it is that you really want. And then that way it prepares you. Let's just say, you know, you want to purchase the course, any course, and you say you don't have money for the course, right? The universe will align to whatever it is that you are going to determine. So if you don't have the money and you say and you affirm that reality that you don't have the money, and then you affirm it in your body, in your spirit, and you can feel it all over you that you're just poor, well, then there's your work. That's where that work has to start. You can't expect to go claim your estate and have a slave-based mentality. You have to move out of that paradigm. And so if you don't have the money, great. That's a great place to start. Facilitate the feelings, facilitate the tools, you know, the aspects that are going to help you feel, okay, I have it now. It's all came for me. Now I can do this stuff. You know what I mean, Holly?
You know what I have found with
Okay.
a lot of people I work with is if they say they don't have the money or they can't afford something, ultimately they really can, because if something is that important to them, they will find the money to do it if it's that important. They don't see the value in something, so then they don't have the money or they say they can't afford it. So it's the value that you place on it. So if something is that important, people always find the money somehow,
Yeah,
because there's this burning passion drive to find it.
exactly. And then sure enough, everything lines up where they can find it. I know I was in that position when I first found equity and I needed 7 pieces of paper done and I needed $6,500 to do it. I only had, you know, a few $100s to my name at the time. Why? Because I was already going through so much stuff that caused me to be against the system. But I knew that I wanted it and that I had to do it. It was in my spirit, it was in my calling. I needed to get this done. And so I aligned and I meditated and I completely brought light. So all that fear in me that says that I can't or that what happens if I don't, yada 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 yada. and then manifested the right people that showed up. If it wasn't for a good dear friend of mine, she put the money down for me to be able to take my first rescission course. And I didn't even have to ask her. She offered it first. But that's because she could feel within me my determination. She knew that this was going to be a very positive thing. And so she wanted to be of help for the greater good of the world, and I'm just so grateful for that. But I knew that that took me having to align with that kind of reality, you know?
Yeah. And there's some tenets too. I mean, if you keep on knocking, the door will be opened. If you keep on asking, the answer, the remedy will be given to you. It requires action. If you just sit there like a lump on the log, as they say, and say, well, God provides. Yeah, but he wants you to be a participant.
Right.
He doesn't want you to be lazy, just hanging around and I'm just going to accept whatever comes this way. No, you put your intent out there. And what father, really, or mother, whatever parent, when their child shows so much excitement, let's say that it's over art supplies and they want to start painting, who doesn't run out and go get the best and bring it to their kid and say, please express yourself? And that's exactly how our God is, our source, our creator.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So, talking about abandonment, there is, and a lot of people don't realize this with the legal system, the way it is now, with anything in life, everything in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm, they're all interconnected. So, if you have stuff going on in your life, then there's stuff going on in the spiritual realm, the unseen world that's affecting you because our thoughts, words, and deeds all have repercussions. Like whatever you're thinking or feeling, it's sending that out into the universe. And it just keeps rebounding around and that's got your energetic connection to it. So
Yeah.
if you have this stuff going on in your life, you really need to take a look at what's going on with your thoughts, words, and deeds. What are you putting out there? Why are you having blocks? Why do you feel every door is closed, nothing's happening, you can't get ahead? If you're having legal issues, where is that coming from? Why are those showing up?
Yeah.
Because that's a key thing. I mean, a lot of people are having legal issues or things going on, and it's something in the field that needs to be cleared because once you clear the spiritual realm and whatever's going on with you there, then things in the physical realm start getting cleared up as well.
Absolutely. And you really nailed it because,
Mhm.
like, for instance, there's a lot of people going through divorce, right? We know that it's higher than it ever has been. And often what's happening in the court system is that they're trying to navigate what the parents, the people, in that relationship could not bring light to, right? So, for instance, I've had people who've gone through divorces and they themselves are starting to get attacked by, let's just say, their wife. It's often the woman that's coming as the claimant in the court. And what the woman is doing is the same behaviors that she was allowed to get away with in the marriage, right? So, for instance, I know a lot of really good men who really want to do everything that they can for their woman. If they love them, they'll go through, hell and fire just to show them that they love them. Jonathan's one of those type of people, right? Thank goodness I'm aware because otherwise I could really take advantage of this man. But I know better. I know that that's not good for his spirit or mine. I know the alignment. But what I've seen is, for when we're doing this equity redemption process and they want to take this on, right? That means they're sitting in the driver's seat. They're no longer looking to a lawyer, right, to take care of their managing the affairs. That means they're looking to be legally fit, right? And that means you have to be competent. What does that mean? You have to be even-minded, right? So often what I see is in instances with these divorces is that the men, the ones that are being perpetrated against. And I know this is true. This is happening all around the country. It's become an epidemic where the lawyers, they themselves, they know that they have to be on the side of the female, because the man is trying to be taken down in this reality, right? So that we have no assertion towards forward movement, all that jazz. But I've seen it where the man is dealing with his own passivity in the courtroom with that judge. So because throughout the relationship, he wasn't looking to bring love or light to those parts and those aspects that had shadows on it, such as why are you being passive? Why do you choose not to love yourself first and put down, the grounding, the foundation that allows that love to be reciprocated rather than you just keep being a little, you know, I can't use that word here. But the fact is that they're having to deal with it somewhere. And if they don't deal within their marriage, they're going to see it in court. And when you're doing this equity redemption process, you're going to have to face exactly those passivity things, while you're dealing with the judge and trying to communicate your own equity. That's what you're up against. And so, yeah, if you are using the court systems to try to navigate your marriage, that's because it's shown in the law that you cannot work out your own issues. And that's because you're emotionally, spiritually unsound. And so this is a big deal that's going on, and they're taking advantage of it, right? They see that the programming is working, and they want to make money off of our own
They
errors.
perpetrate it. They coach women on it. Yeah.
But we're not victims to it. We're just participants. And as long as we choose to participate, as long as a woman or a man choose to be angry with each other for whatever it is, then that continues to prosper a system that where it goes to that energy and it sucks from it and it takes the life force from it. So it's just like in contracts. There's so much interest that people have in a contract when they get a loan, right? And we're parties to that interest. That means we have right to it. But we abandon that too, right? That has to do with having to stop being ignorant, right? Ignoring a reality, right? And just being so focused on this little paradigm of me and my and you and we, and you're separate from me. What I'm feeling is separate from what you're feeling. It's all connected. It's all interrelated. I can always tell my state of being based on the people who are around me. You know,
Yes.
absolutely.
Attraction. Yeah.
And if there's people in my environment that are taking from me, that are maybe not being so equitable, then that tells me that I got some leaks in my field that I need to deal with, that I need to go into my meditation and bring into my heart and find love with it so that I can no longer have that same experience where, I'm being sucked on, for life force.
And we have to cover, the fact that you mentioned two realms. It's always the two, right? And under natural law, do as you wish, but do no harm. Everything's contract. So it has to happen in the, as Plato would describe, in the realm of ideas, or the blueprint realm, or the quantum realm. And so what we're trying to do is bring something from a field of wavy possibility into more likely probability, and then finally into manifestation. And so what is bound on earth is bound in heaven. And there's a delay, right? And thank goodness, because if we started all thinking about elephants right now, they'd rampage the room and destroy it.
Just
We
like
wouldn't get
The
anything
Secret.
done. Yeah. So thank goodness there's a delay to that. So you have time, and I think it's a very loving act of God. Say, okay, what'd you just think? What'd you feel? What energy did you put into that? Okay, you have some time now to reverse and course correct that whole thing.
And I don't know if you have anything to say, Holly, but I just want to say something about that because I know in my own experience with um, having done meditation since I was 16 and being very familiar with the field of darkness and how much I've had to reprogram myself to be on a different wavelength, that the more entrenched I am with all of those programs, the slower things manifest. Whereas the more that I'm in my alignment and feeling that power and I've retained that energy back rather than just acting like it's somebody else's problem, why I feel this way, the faster things manifest. And I really feel that's where we're going here as a collective consciousness, is that as we get familiar with how these contracts work, how the ledger works, how the nation system is based off of the debt of the people, right? And then we really start to retain that energy back. We really start to be able to manifest a lot quicker and sooner because we're no longer identifying to these aspects that we think that give us abundance. For instance, we know the Federal Reserve dollar is a corrupt form of currency, right? But it still is operable as a form of exchange. And so many people do so much just to have a Federal Reserve note, even though that it's a debt note, right? Even though it's corrupted, it's not legitimate. But the point is that once we remove those identities, the illusions through equity really helps that, understanding those basics, people understanding how the law works. Then we start to see, wow, this whole entire time, I've been placing my energy onto that dollar bill and acting like that dollar bill has been bringing me abundance, when really it was the whole time, it was my alignment to God. It's God that gives you everything. And so the more that we come into that greatness, I feel that we're going to be able to just manifest food out of nowhere, We're going to be able to manifest, and it's already shown in science. I'm sure you're very aware of like Dr. Joe Dispenza and all the work that he's done and other people have done to show that like literally bread falling out from the sky,
Manna.
just manifesting out of thin air. And that's because we are living in a matrix. Absolutely. And we're programming ourselves, we're probing, and we're looking out with our little glasses to see, what's on the inside. So it's really exciting. That's what I love about the law. It really brings a lot of light to this. So if you don't get this any other way and you choose to follow the law, you're going to find that. You're going to be forced to see that.
So being bound on earth, the paper contract is a part or a segment. Yeah, you can do some paperwork and send it in and have some sort of result, but it won't be as strong or as effective as a result if you also unbound that with your spiritual practice to get loose from that. Hey, I got myself into this. I forgive myself, and please forgive me for giving away the gift that you gave and just giving it to somebody else, abandoning it. And now I'm going to set things right. I'm going to put to paper what I have unbound in heaven, essentially.
Yes. It's quite remarkable if people do take your class and start becoming their own advocates for themselves, because then you're not leaving this to a lawyer or anybody else to handle for you. You're stepping into your own power and handling your own legal matters, where you then are controlling your destiny. You're aligning with your true natural law it's God given to all of us. And I think of when I went through my divorce, oh my gosh, it cost me literally just me $100,000 just
Oh,
to get out of a contract. I mean, I look back on that and I'm like, oh my God, like it was years just tangled up in the courts. And it was so painful that, if I had taken this class or knew about this back then, I mean, you're $1,500 versus 100,000 I spent to get out of it. I could have been out of that contract with my ex-husband, you know, for a song and dance, and I would have been empowered. It's taken me
yes, that's
years.
the important part. Yeah,
Yeah,
you would
I
have been
mean,
empowered.
And what's interesting about marriages too, it's just a contract, just like you said. And so when you're getting a divorce, you're actually just occurring a new contract, right?
yeah,
That is greater and bigger than the old contract.
Modified, yeah.
So really, there's still an account there, There's still an account that they're able to make money off of on the backside, right? That has to do with the whole transactions that took between you and your ex-partner. It's just absolutely fascinating. But why, Holly, if we look at that, it's like the alignment there, right? Obviously, I think this is about time and space. I think that right now we're entering into a space where this information is becoming more readily available because people are open to it. They've been doing enough in their work that yes, now it's starting to be, we're starting to hear it more, which I love. I'm so grateful for that. And if we look at, yeah, so why wouldn't you have found this knowledge before you went through your divorce, right? Because of everything that you were dealing with your own programmings. And
yeah,
if you had found us, then you wouldn't have to go through all that drama, right? To give you all those lessons that that you needed. But thank goodness, because they created you and you're so awesome and amazing. And that helped you, do what it is that you're doing. And just like all of us, there's no accidents.
no,
It's just how do we choose to get there? We all get to choose. We can take this route, that route. We can go straight down to the middle, you know? So
right.
I definitely feel like if anybody gets to have even any awareness that this course exists, it means that on a level, they are actually truly really starting to gain back their own energy. They're really starting to attain back their essence.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's huge because when I was going through my divorce, I felt powerless. I felt like I was in a loop of just being sucked dry of money and energy. And it was, I mean, I used to tell my lawyer, I want off of this ride. Like you every month I'm getting a bill from you and I want it to end, like the bleeding to end. Like I can't do this anymore. And but they know how much you're going to be worth and they run that up. They run that bill to when you're at that breaking point and then they're like, okay, let's settle now. And they knew there was a lot of money in it. So they just kept
Yeah.
years of dragging that through the court
The
system.
lawyers are officers of the court, so their
Yeah.
Yes.
interest is in what the court can do. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we almost got to a point where we had exhausted everything the court threw at us, and they're like, okay, mediation didn't work, and, everything we've done, now you're going to go to trial. And they said you have to each put another $100,000 to your lawyers to retain them. And that's when I told my lawyer, I'm done. I don't care. Just I'm done. I'm not doing anymore. My losses. Get me done. And we just settled.
I'm sure it's like almost made you and your ex-husband friends again, right? Created a
No, it took
common
a long
enemy.
time.
Took a long time. Being,
We are friends now, but no, we were not friends for a very long time.
what we like to say is the cat's out of the bag on this whole deal. It's not going back in. And it's God bless anyone who takes this upon themselves and teaches somebody else, you know? So it really is. It's not proprietary. Again, we say law is your birthright. So who owns it? Who gets to say who gets to use it and who gets to teach it? Just as long as it's accurate and spiritually based, because that's where it comes from,
Mhm.
right? And so we are on a whole new frontier, and it's only going to get better. Everyone's reclaiming their estate
And that
and their
changes
power.
the system, absolutely changes the system. I do want to say for abandonment and also to Merlin. Are you familiar with them? I know there's so many different types of Merlins, but there was one from 1990
Yeah, the
with the,
series.
not the series.
Oh, it wasn't series.
It was the one, it was a popular actor. He was from the dinosaur movie.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
I believe that
What's
is
it?
the oh no, you're talking about the movie. I got it. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
which one. Go
yeah.
for it.
So there is that Mab who actually created Merlin, right? And Merlin was actually the one that destroyed Mab, but he didn't destroy her by having his power be stronger than her. The way that he destroyed her was he win the hearts of those that are in that realm, and then they all chose to ignore Mab. And then when Mab was ignored, she started to lose all of her power, right? So it's up to us as a community, as a being, to win the hearts of each other, right? And to start really getting familiar and comfortable with what it's like to be in a wholesome community. And then eventually, like just like in that movie, removing our energy out from a system that can no longer siphon us. And there's this book that I really highly recommend to everybody. It's called Grandmother's Sweet Shield, the story of Grandmother Sweet Shield. And it's from a company, Amuse, Marilyn and Thomas Twintrees. Amazing couple. They're so eccentric. If you met them, you're like on a whole nother planet, entering into their field. They own a crystal business, but she channeled grandmother Sweet Shield, who was a girl way, way, way back in the times of when tribes were running this earth, and it was very not industrial age. And it was the story about how, because she was born a girl, her father sent her as a baby to go be killed. And the shaman who helped that, the leaders of the family, the tribal king and queen, instead of killing the baby, he was instructed in a dream to go set her somewhere where then a bear would come and pick her up. And that sure enough happened. A bear ended up adopting her as a baby and raising her. And you'll see in this story about how she's dealing with her own traumas of abandonment. She's in this world of four-legged is what she called, and she's a two-legged, and she's so different from everyone else. That she's amongst, and her own people, she's estranged to. She barely hears the first time she hears them speak is when she's like much older, and she sees the whole way that they operate themselves, and it's like, whoa, what is this? But what was so amazing about this book is if you can handle to read it, because it is something that it takes you completely out of the mind and into the heart. So if you're constantly on a beta mode, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to take this book. But the whole point of the book is at the end is that it's about how she resolved her point of trauma of being abandoned. And it was all about coming back to the earth and breathing with the earth and allowing the earth to hold her, in the way, and using those tools and those systems that the animals taught her on how to stay connected with the natural world. Because it was the tribe that was disconnected from the natural world, right? Which is why they use their conditions to determine what their action should be, even though they're not righteous, like sending off a baby to be killed just because she's a girl, right? But it's such a profound book because if you can get to the end, I guarantee you're going to end up crying. But it also help you to, if anybody's going through any issues that have to do with abandonment, it's a healing book. So I recommend anybody to get access to that. Grandmother's Sweet Shield.
I think probably everybody listening to this has dealt with abandonment in some way, shape, or form. Um, some it's more prevalent, some less, but we're all abandoned on some level. The most biggest abandonment that we all do is we abandon ourselves for loving ourselves. We don't know how to
Exactly.
love ourselves. And when you truly love yourself, that's when you find your own power. And when you are in that place of love, you won't allow a system or a person or anything to harm you because you love yourself. And there's an honor in that, in loving yourself. And the other point I wanted to make when you were talking about Merlin is where attention goes, energy flows. So when they turned their back and it stopped, when you said with Nab, it's because they weren't putting their attention on that anymore. And same with anything in life. Whatever you put your attention on is where the energy is going to flow. So if people look at where they're focused, some people have very obsessive thoughts and all their energy, they're just obsessively thinking about this one thing. Well, you're all day putting energy to that and you're just going to keep manifesting that. So change your focus, change your thoughts.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to bring attention on that too, is like I tell people, you just because when if they're like, well, I don't understand what do you mean? Like, am I supposed to bring attention to this when I am all day, thinking about this? It's like, no, your thoughts are distracting you from the root because it's your body that's feeling. So it's your job to go to the feeling and to clear those thoughts so that you can do enough inner attention to allow that to transmute, to dissipate, rather than allowing that mode just to keep going and just to keep you into that loop, right?
And again, what is attention other than agape? It's love. And if you look at the Greek loves, I love other languages because, you know, I guess the movie Roxanne with oh, we don't need to go into the actors, but anyway, Steve Martin and Daryl Hannah, I think it is. But anyway, um, he while he was trying to woo her from the bushes, uh, she said, "Oh," she mentioned something about love. He goes, "Love, what is love?" And he goes into this thing describing how we only have one word that describes like laundry detergent. Oh, I love that laundry detergent. Whereas the Greek loves, they very much categorize them. And one of the ones you brought up was mania. That's a Greek love, where it's this obsessive thing where you're focused on something, right? It's always about focus and attention. And so that's how we're creating this new, collectively, our own egregor of a new way of being. Actually, it's a returning back to the natural place that we're supposed to be. medium of exchange that flows, because money is attention focused too. That also is love. And so that is what's causing this great healing to occur, is to love, have sufficient love of self and sufficient love of other, and therefore move all that energy into something highly constructive.
Yes, I agree. And there was a point I was going to make about, and it completely slipped my mind. Oh, the looping. When people are looping, it's because they have so much inner turmoil within themselves that they can't still themselves or still their thoughts. And that clearly means they have so much inner work they need to do. Like I used to be in that place when I was going through my divorce. Oh my God, was I looping? Oh, I was so chaotic and scattered, and I was a hot mess. But, you know,
At least you were hot.
Yeah, there you go. That's the important.
but I've done so much work. Like I realized I had so much trauma that I needed to really heal all those aspects of myself. And now I'm at a very peaceful place. Like if there's something that comes up in my field that's not right, it's like I feel like, okay, I set the intention and let it go. And I don't have to worry about it anymore because the right people, the right situations, it just automatically shows up. That's being in the flow.
Absolutely.
It's being
Yeah.
in because money is, what is it called? Currency. We're in the current. So when you are in the flow and in the current, it's give and take. You don't want to just get money. Like everybody thinks, let me get money and just, sit on piles and piles. And, it comes and it goes. It's a flow of energy. Money is just energy exchange. Just like the legal system is an energy exchange.
Yeah, it's a book.
Just like if we abandon ourselves, well, we've abandoned everything in our life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the fact that many people, I mean, we have Jordan Maxwell, the godfather of, conspiracy and law and a couple other things, to thank for introducing us to the language and the terms used. He's the one that, hey, this is maritime or admiral law that they're using in the courts, right? And there's a real good reason why they chose water metaphor. Like you're underwater, we're having a sail, like the sail of a ship. There's berthing and docking and
Walking on water.
walking. Commerce means, which is interesting, calm together, merce, which is on the sea. Uh, Sounds very romantic, right? Commerce, come together on the sea. Why not? But the point I was trying to make is that this perfectly correlates, water correlates to being one of the four elements, which also those four map to the universal virtues of love, justice, wisdom, and power. And it just so happens that water is love. Now, there's a shadow side, right? Like mania would be a shadow side of love. And then there is an authentic side, the place where we want to be. So the fact that our focus and attention is placed, love, on commerce, which really comes down to the flow and how love is managed, that's the way to look at it. And to relanguage those things away from what has been programmed into us into our own new law lexicon of what those things truly mean. And one of the things I appreciated about Grandmother Sweetshield is they went into language, how the two-leggeds forgot the language of the earth, nature, God, source. And that's the trouble that they have. That's their turmoil.
That's why we're running into this. We've abandoned the earth, but she's always there for us, which is really great. And I want to say this, I invite the audience to do this exercise because I think this is really important, just to go back to that point of sitting on a bunch of pile of money, right? Um, you know, if I find myself where I tend to be a pretty gregarious, I have a lot of Leo in my chart, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll give you this. And if I'm in a state where I start to feel like, oh no, I'm at the last $50, and I start to feel contraction, like, oh crap, I'm scared. What's going to happen next? I and I invite the audience to do this too, because this is really going to help. By coming into awareness, like first, before you take any action with that having to do with any spending, is you first pay attention to all of that feeling and see if you can't focus on bringing in a different feeling of abundance before you do anything. But also, if I'm in that state of feeling lack, and I know that there's people around me that need, my often thing is I'm going to do that because I know that this is God testing me. God wants me to, God is asking me, where are you putting your faith into? Is it into the fact of your bank account with that ledger, or are you putting your faith into me? Right. And so often my practice has been, and now it's much easier than it ever has been before, is to always put my faith back into God. And on that last $50, I'll give it away because I'm now being the authentic true to what it is that I'm truly feeling, which is, yeah, I could have a zero balance on my bank account, but I'm going to feel abundant and I'm always going to be taken care of, you know? And in times in my life when I truly felt lack because of, for instance, understanding how the system works with money, I ended up homeless, right? Because I was totally against money, totally against the whole system. Like, I'm angry, da na 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 na. I had, it was like everybody around me was like, get away from me. They didn't want anything to do with me. And I found that, like, yeah, it was like, absolutely, that this is totally my own turmoil that's happening within inside me that's causing me to be homeless, right? That's causing me not to have anything. So I just invite the audience to pay attention to when you start to feel those lacks and you feel like you want to contract, and then you start just spending maybe $1 on your soap, even though it's not good soap for you, just come back into that wholesome experience of feeling the abundance before you do anything. And then see if you can't give more. See if you can't give during that time, because that's going to start to reverse your programmings. It's going to start to reverse the expression in your life that the amount that's in your bank account equals to how much abundance you have,
We're constantly tested as to fitness from source.
always.
And you can also take your last $5 that you're going to buy a cup of coffee that's probably got moldy beans in it, made from moldy beans. And you can intend on that $5 bill, I'm going to give this away. And it's going to bring so much happiness and it's going to fulfill a need for somebody else right here and now today. And then go off and give that away. And that's a good way of intending and getting that out, because it always, whatever you give out in love, in agape, always comes back. Actually, a scripture comes to mind. It says, test me out in this respect and bring food into my storehouse until there's no more want. Excuse me. Do this and test me out in this respect that I don't give you an abundance until there's no more want. Now, that's a great place to be, to want for nothing. That's a really wonderful, warm place to be.
So just
Yeah.
one more thing, and then I'm going to stop talking. If we can all, as a society, start to replace these feelings of lack with feelings of abundance, then nobody is going to be homeless. Nobody's going to be without food, because the expression of people being homeless is the identity of people with lack. And just like you said, Holly, earlier, your thoughts are affecting your reality and they're affecting me, right? And so we have a collective responsibility to each other to really restore ourselves when we're feeling into those programmings that have been put into us of fear that we're going to be without, and then what we choose to do because of that. So I really do feel that's how people are going to truly align with the remedies of law, because that's God's kingdom. Returning back to nature, turning back to law, getting out of the slave bonds, which is unnatural, right? It's unlawful, and we want to get out of that. Well, we have to return back to that point of heaven on earth, and that's going to happen within each other,
I agree. So we're coming up to almost an hour. So where can
Oh, wow.
people find you with taking your course? And if they have any legal remedies that they need, that they feel it's just too great for them to take on and they want your services, how do they find you?
Yeah, so it's White Rabbit Dawn Academy, and the link is, I think you'll have the link, right?
Below. Yes.
Great.
Well,
Awesome.
this
Yeah.
is great, and we will continue our discussions and talk about different subjects and having people empower themselves on how to navigate in natural law.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Authentic law. Authentic law.
One and the same.
Yes.
One and
Awesome.
awesome.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being on. Have a
Thank
great
Thank
day.
you. Yeah.
you.